Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, starring Joe Rayo and co-starring Joe Chaffee. We get equal billing,
or vice versa.
Yes, the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by the folks at Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. And I know it's the middle of September, but you know what? Before you know it, you're going to need salt. And if you're a snow removal guy or gal, you might want to stock up because there is a salt shortage, and Omni gets their salt mining rather than importing, so their prices will be the lowest you can find. Also, they'll have all the ice melting products and snow melt products like Pelleto and Mag Ice pellets and flakes. And that's what Omni looks like on the outside at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. And also brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. And for you contractors out there, this is for contractors. They are having a holiday lighting open house free event on Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if this is your business, or maybe you want to make it your business in the future, you might want to attend. And they're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, also on Long Island like Omni. And their number is 631-957-5106. You can make the houses in your neighborhood look terrific. And their website is liholidaylighting.com. And here we are. Hi there.
I've always, I getting to holiday decorating. There was a place when I was in Throg's Neck, Joe, where there was this one guy who always loved to completely cover his house with lights, Santa's reindeer, the nativity scene, music in the background or whatever. And everybody from all around, not just our neighborhood, but from all different sectors of the Bronx, all different places in New York City, they all came to this guy's house because they wanted to see this brilliantly lit up home. But when I went there, taken there by my grandparents or my mom or whatever like that, I never looked at that house. You know what I looked at?
I can't imagine. What did you look at?
I looked at the homes that were on either side of this guy's house, who couldn't hold a candle to this guy, and I felt so bad for them, or the people who lived across the street. Everybody's looking. Oh, look at that! Isn't that beautiful? Meanwhile, I'm looking at that house or across this kind of, because they decorated too, but they didn't decorate on the same level as this guy. They was simply known for many years as simply the house. I remember, I said, "Hey, you kids want to go and see the house?" We knew exactly what.
You knew the house that was on. Remember, I don't know if you knew that house it's kind of infamous. It's on Pelham Parkway, between before Eastchester Road. It's one of these they actually, that's their business. So you got the houses in the Bronx are they're on what 100 by 40 plots if they're lucky, and
right.
Or even smaller. And I mean, they would just overload it. Cars would get in long lines to see this house, and it was not. I don't know. For me, I always found that the ones that were over decorated were just a little bit. There's such a thing as too much. So for me, it's too much. Right. I also have noticed too, by the way, people they don't. Once upon a time, almost every house would decorate outside, and I find now that fewer and fewer people are doing that.
Well, maybe they just.
I'll tell you from my standpoint, Joe, I stopped doing it back a few years ago because I didn't have the time. Working, you work 5 days a week, you're driving, commuting, you come back. The last thing I wanted to do on a weekend was spend it putting up Christmas decorations. I know that may sound a little grinchy, but I just didn't have the time.
Well, I'm sure that once again I will be going up on the little giant ladder to put up the decorations under. But I think by talking about this subject, people saying enough with this. I know Giannini is probably enjoying
Oh, I was going to
our talking
say,
about
yes,
holiday lighting and decorating.
absolutely.
But
Mike and Angelo were just
but we
having
are
a listen.
here.
Keep talking, keep talking.
But we are here. We are here to talk about weather, and we're going to talk about weather tonight. You've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, including tropical systems. I think, in fact, the poll tonight is concerning that. Maybe you want to just tell everybody or remind
Yes.
everybody to
So our
take a
poll
vote on it.
tonight, and people are just, they're lining up at the polls to vote. Then they're going to go out to California and vote in the governor's election there. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, does the system in the Atlantic, and I think anybody, the regular weather followers know which one I'm talking about, and we'll take a look at it. Will that develop into a tropical storm? So far, 39 votes, Joe. 39 votes. 87% say yes, and 13% say no. So yes, the chat board meteorologists are on the yes train so far in a big way.
Well, the can I say that the question is a little ambiguous because we have not one but two
Oh,
systems in
okay.
the
So you
Atlantic
know what? I
Ocean.
should have made that clear. I'm sorry. In the Western Atlantic, not the one off the African
In
coast,
the
the
West.
one right off the East Coast. Yeah, so that would be in the
Okay,
Western Atlantic.
right.
And there's no way for me to edit that.
That's the
So
that's the hurricane. That's the hurricane that one local radio weathercaster on Saturday was
right,
telling
that
everybody was
that
going to
right,
come up the
exactly. That
coast.
that
Yeah,
it's that
right.
one. That's the one that we're
Yes,
talking about. So
right.
let's take a look. First, you know what? I did bring up. I went to the website that you can plot the maps on the rainfall amounts. So I figure let's take a look at that first off the bat. So give me a moment here. There we go. It's the there it is. So you see it up there on the screen. That is it's water.weather.gov/precip/index.php. Okay. The website actually is the AHPS Precipitation Analysis. And this is what I brought up, Joe, is this is 7 days. So this is the last week along the Texas coast. I'm a little surprised, not counting anything that's fallen, by the way, since 7 a.m. Today. I'm a little surprised. I would have thought these numbers were a bit higher. I mean, there are some coastal areas there northeast of Freeport, Port O'Connor, and on up into southeastern Texas have already picked up anywhere from 5 to 9 inches of rain. But the areas further to the south, even in and around Corpus Christi, there were some 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 3 inch rain amounts in the yellow. But I would have thought that these numbers would have been a little bit higher, but I guess not. But in the meantime, that heavy rain is spreading. They are going to pick up additional significant amounts tonight because this thing has really slowed to a crawl.
Right, and we were Renan and I were just talking about this earlier today. She was looking at this on her iPad. She said, "My goodness, this thing isn't moving. It's going to be a really problematic for those folks." And I said, "No kidding." Now, I assume that our former colleague Addison Green is going to have his hands full over
Well,
the next 24 to 48 hours, isn't
Well,
he?
I'm looking at the radar, Joe, and everything now is on the east side. The radar's coming up on the screen now. Everything is on the east side. The rain is done in the Houston area and Galveston and the rest of the Texas. It's just a small area in southeastern Texas, right near the Louisiana border. Much of the rain now is in Louisiana and Mississippi, southern Alabama to the Florida Panhandle. It almost looks like a wintertime east-west arm of moisture that's come out of the Gulf of Mexico. There's nothing on the west side. I mean, it's got that curl signature to it that tells you there's still an intact circulation, but there's not the rains for the most part on the Texas side look like they're over with, at least for the overnight.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Just taking another look. I haven't had a chance really to concentrate too much on what's going on down south.
Well, that's okay. I
But
just
now
saw this for myself, so this is the first time I'm looking at it this evening. So I'm a little surprised at it too.
Now we take a look and see what this now this would be what, Nicholas, is if this system in the Atlantic develops before the one off of Africa, this would be the O storm. This would be Odette.
Right. Now, if the Africans, if we get the system off Africa to develop before either one, if we get both of them to develop, the P storm is Peter, correct?
Right.
Oh, okay. Very good.
I'm not going to pan that system off of the southeast coast right now.
All right. Well, yes, I get you. Meanwhile, we'll come back to this. There is some strong thunderstorm activity going on from around Toronto. Looks like some cells going by there in the north, and also in southeastern Michigan, just west of Detroit, cutting across central Indiana, central Illinois, back to St. Louis, and it actually extends even further back west into Kansas and parts of Colorado. So that's where our severe weather risk is tonight. Since I got the radar up, the Northeast is just nothing's going on. From Maine clear down to Georgia, there's no echoes. You got to go into Alabama and the Florida Panhandle to get those to get the first shot of echoes on the radar. Meanwhile, taking a look at the satellite loop, here's the system out in the Atlantic. And the one thing I noticed today, Joe, is that now it's a tropical wave that's interacting with an upper trough, and conditions are not favorable for development at the moment. But you're starting to see the thunderstorms getting a little more concentrated. I'm also noticing it's developing that sort of arc, that little curvature there on the northern end. So it might be starting to organize a little bit, but it's going to take some time here. The upper trough that's between that system and Nicholas is still there. You can actually almost see it in terms of the way the clouds are moving off the North Florida coast. Now that is forecast. It looks like it's obviously weakening. That's what they were waiting for. So that seems to be weakening. It needs to weaken a little bit more and get out of the way. And at that point, maybe this will start to organize a bit more. But so far, it's still just a disorganized area of showers.
Yeah, and the other system looks like it has a better chance of forming before this one that we're looking at off the southeast coastline. At least they have a greater probability of development as opposed to the one off the southeast coast. So the one off of Africa may be Odette, and this one might indeed become Peter. But we'll see how quickly both systems develop.
Yeah, I just brought up the loop for that. There's actually a second wave that's even behind this one. But there is curvature here near the south of the Cabo Verde Islands. You can see the curvature of the clouds, kind of one arm there that's sort of spiraling around. So it's a fairly well developed tropical wave, and conditions seem to be conducive for this to develop. Even though the models don't seem overly bullish, I actually, Joe, I have to tell you, I kind of like this now with the models that seem to be not unlike for the last number of years where everything was a Category 5 hurricane, particularly on the Canadian model. Whatever upgrades they did seem to have kind of taken away the deepening bias, if we want to call it that. I mean, it shows up every once in a while, but we haven't seen any of them go crazy. Forget about the NAM3. That's in its own little world. But now the folks that not referring to the Hurricane Center, but those of us that are looking at this sort of stuff have to do a little work and look at the upper air and look to see what the shear looks like and if there's good outflow and figure it out for ourselves. So I kind of like that. Gives me it's a bit more. It gives me a challenge, and I like I like challenges in the weather world, especially if they come out the way I think I say they're going to come out, that I predict that they're going to come out. leaves you with a positive feeling about the work you do. So I think it's a good thing. So I didn't look at the upper air setup across the Atlantic yet, but we could look at that together a little bit later on.
Now, I got an email from not an email, but on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, from Sandy Duncan. No, not the Sandy Duncan that was the actress of many years ago on television. And I actually saw that Sandy Duncan at Radio City Music Hall. It was the night that I proposed to my dear wife back in 1983. But this is a different Sandy Duncan. And she writes, I know that we have had questions like this in the past, and we've said that climate change now seems to be on steroids this year, and you're just asking about what my opinion was about this.
No, the media is on steroids.
Well, I wrote back to Ms. Duncan, and I said, there have been other decades where the weather patterns were pushed to an extreme. Some called the decade of the 1930s. And you remember the late Tex Antoine used to refer to the decade of the 30s, Joe, as
the dirty 30s, yes.
Because of the abnormal number of records that were set in that decade. Here in New York, for example, the coldest temperature ever recorded, minus 15 degrees, February 9th, 1934, and the hottest temperature ever recorded, 106, July 9th, 1936, again, recorded in that decade. The most destructive hurricane, or one of the most destructive in this area, the so-called Long Island Express, which ripped across Long Island in September of 1938, actually created the geographic area we now call Shinnecock Inlet. And let's not also forget that was the decade that was referred to as the Great Dust Bowl era. Haven't had too many of those summers lately. For example, 1952, Hurricane Abel. 1954, Hurricanes Carol, Edna, Hazel. No, Hazel did not have a kitchen apron around her when she came northward. That's a different Hazel. Hurricane Connie and Diane, 1955. So right there, over a span of 2 years in the 1950s, you had not one, not two, not three, but 5 hurricanes. And by the way, Hazel almost devastated Toronto. It held on to its strength, came inland, and almost caused cataclysm in the Toronto area.
Yeah, New York City
about that all these years later.
Yeah, New York City still has the all-time highest wind gust record. I think that's from Hurricane Hazel. It was 111 mile an hour wind gust. That still stands.
Then Hurricane Audrey in 1957. Hurricane Cindy and Gracie, 1959, and then this very active period in the 1950s suddenly subsided after Hurricane Donna in 1960. After Donna, there were just two hurricane landfalls in the Northeast between 1961 and 1990. That was Belle in 76, Gloria in 85. So global warming and climate change are making for more potent, more robust tropical cyclones, tropical systems. Global warming and climate change does not increase the frequency of storms for any given region. That seems to be connected to a more cyclical phenomenon. So
actually, I would just let me just add this to you. I would argue that in terms of the what was the word you used? The ferocity of these storms. Is that what you said?
More potent, more robust.
Okay. Oddly enough, when they redid the normals, the average number of storms has gone from, because we're in this cyclical, upswing. So we've gone from. We've seen them go from 10 in the Atlantic Basin, from 10 to 12. Now it's 14. 7 hurricanes. The number of hurricanes on average went from 6 to 7. Okay. However, interestingly enough, the number of major hurricanes has remained static. That number has actually is unchanged. It's 3. Okay, it was
Really?
yeah. So I think you could make a case if you look, Joe. I mean, if you look back, and when you look back at the statistics, and of course we know that the further we look back, there's stuff that's missing. Okay, we clearly don't know in the pre-satellite era, and then in the pre-reconnaissance era. Some of these storms might have achieved Category 4, Category 5 status when they weren't around any ships, or if they made landfall in a very desolate area where there was no reliable observations. But we are. I think the crux of this problem is, in my view, is that you go back. If you probably go back more than 20 years, or 30 years, you didn't have a 24-hour news cycle. You didn't have, if you were in the East, you never hardly you'd see a blurb about that big in the newspaper a day or two later about a hurricane that may have hit Florida or hit the Gulf Coast. You got very little attention. So everybody's kind of centered in their own universe and in their own world, and they sort of think that, okay, I'm seeing this all here, therefore it applies everywhere. And there's a perception problem here, in my view, when it comes to this, and there's a huge media problem. And as we all know, this could all have been solved had we only had more mesonets that were working properly, according to
Senator Schumer,
the dear senator and majority leader, Senator Schumer. So,
yeah. Well, you're echoing what, and we had him on the show about 6 months ago, Jim Witt, maybe more than 6 months ago, more like November, December of last year. Jim, I did a special for News 12 many years ago called Climate of Concern. And when I was talking about this with Jim said, today it's so much different than it was, as you just pointed out, Joe, 20, 30, 40 years ago. He said today everybody's got their iPhone. And if the slightest little thing happens, or if they happen to be within range of a tornado,
right,
or a hailstorm or whatever, a severe thunderstorm, it immediately goes, on the iPhone and then is transmitted on social media everywhere. And he said people get the impression from that weather is getting worse. And then came back to him on camera and he says, it isn't, it's weather. I love how he said that.
At the end of the day, look, I really don't want to get in general. I don't really get into these conversations with regards to climate change and global warming, or however you want to whatever you want to call it, because it's a political conversation, and it's a political conversation that frankly I really don't want to have. Okay, obviously this is at the end of the day, just like everything that goes on when it comes to politics, it's about taking something from A and giving it to B, okay, or taking something from B and giving it to A. This is all about, money, transfer of wealth, however you want to phrase it. It's just not a conversation I really want to, that I enjoy talking about, because, it boils down to usually somebody saying, asking me in a really passive aggressive, disingenuous way that of course, I should be out there championing the causes of, of climate change and all the rest of it. Honestly, I don't, it's not on my priority list.
Okay, well,
no. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you here. I'm just saying
no.
No.
But what I'm going to finish out this conversation, and then we'll move on. But I finished off my message to Ms. Duncan by saying, so yes, weather-wise there will be crazy years, but they're going to be quiet years as well. And I could remember, Joe, within just the last couple of years, one well-known TV weathercaster, and I will not mention his name, but everybody here knows who he is and has seen him many, many times on television, both locally and nationally as well. He was asked during the winter of 2019-2020, why was there such a lack of cold and snow that particular winter season. And his comment was, it's obvious. It's all due to global warming. But then last winter, when we went through 6 weeks of, and that 6 weeks started right at the bat on the first day of February and ran right into mid-March, we went through 6 weeks of ongoing cold and snow. The very same guy said, oh, without a question of doubt, we're seeing climate change in action. That's the reason for the bouts of heavy snow in New York and Boston. That's why they're getting frigid temperatures and icy rains plunging south all the way down to Texas. So that's the reason. And I said, when I heard that, I said, really? Really? So it seems to me like whenever we now have in this social media world, whenever we have an anomalous weather scenario, blame it on climate change, blame it on global warming. The problem is you can't have it both ways, or you can't have your cake and eat it too. So that's all I'm going to say.
Right.
You know,
Look, it's I'll just add that they work for corporations. They work for corporations who have, sort of who have latched on to this cause and other causes in order to generate revenue. So you can expect those people to talk the party line. And the party line is it makes money for the company, so I'm going to talk up, I'm going to talk up climate change because the company has a climate change initiative. I don't think I'm saying anything here that's controversial. You could go down through a whole list of corporate, of television organizations and the companies that own them. And I'm sure you'll find that there are all sorts of, there's all sorts of campaigns and programs that these broadcast entities are on this theme because it's making them money. If the day comes that it doesn't make them money, they'll move on to the next cause. That's just, it's all, it's all
whatever.
Willard Scott. I want to use a word. I think I'm going to use it. But I know I won't use it. I'll use a variation of it, but everybody will know. But he used to say to me, when it comes to, with television, when it comes to television and what you see, it's 3 words, Joe. It's all bull poo poo. Okay? And he said it with this wonderful Southern, loud drawl, and he belted it out there. It's all bull poo poo. Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Isn't it amazing to see somebody, let's say, that you've watched on television for many years and you've gotten a certain idea about him and who he is or whatever like that. And then if you ever met him in person and he uttered one of the so-called 7 words you can't utter on television, you do like a double take, like, what? You said that? I would have loved to have heard Willard Scott say what it was.
I spent a lot of time with him off camera, so I remember, and I tell that.
Yes.
I say that, by the way, with a lot of love, and I don't want anybody to misinterpret it. I had a wonderful relationship with him, and it was great. It was those two. We talked about this last week when we discussed his passing, and he was a very shrewd, very smart man. He understood what show business was about, and that's what it is.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So.
Otay, as they used to say. I'm not exactly sure. Anyhow,
I think we covered the tropics.
Right. Maybe we're going to. How do you know, by the way, that that's not the Sandy Duncan? I mean, she is still with us, isn't she? Yeah.
Yes. But it was not. I know who this other Sandy Duncan is.
Oh, okay.
But it's not the Sandy Duncan that's so.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just want to clarify that. All right. Let's get back to the weather stuff. I don't even remember what the last thing we did was, but I'll figure it out.
I think we were putting the finishing touches on tropical systems, and we were getting into precipitation and possibly severe weather or convective conditions for the next couple of days or a few days coming up.
Right. All right.
At least that's what I think. That's what I think we were doing.
Okay. So hang on a second. Let me bring the map back up. Oh yeah. So here we go. So I wanted to bring up Tropical Depression Nicholas. No longer a tropical storm. Now, where's the graphic? Oh, here it is. So I can actually read it. It is at 29.9 and 94.4. So it must be, pretty much right on Beaumont, Port Arthur. Top winds are 35 miles an hour. It's moving east-northeast at 6. And it doesn't look, by the way, even though some of the models or days ago were trying to entrain a lot of this moisture and just kind of, drag it up the East Coast. But that's not going to happen. It looks like it's just going to pretty much rain itself out there across the deep south. The depression, the remnant depression, just slows to an absolute crawl. As I said, just east northeast at 6, and the position at 1 p.m. Thursday is not exactly that far away from where it is now. It's only about 150 or so miles to the northeast. So they'll probably get they'll definitely get quite a bit of rain in southeast Louisiana. WPC is forecasting a rather large area of 5 inches plus for southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southernmost Alabama, and the western part of the Florida Panhandle. But we don't. Again, if this were something that was going to be coming up the East Coast, you would see that precip shield of heavier precip going all the way up, and you notice it cuts off. Once you get into eastern Georgia, western North Carolina, you start to get to the amounts of an inch or less. And right up the coastal plain is another clue, by Joe, with regards to the system out in the Atlantic. If the Atlantic system were going to be truly problematic, I would think WPC would have rainfall forecast all the way up the coast, but they don't. It's well offshore, east of the Carolinas. Right. It's kind of telling you that, at least from the standpoint of what they're thinking, that system is going to wind up staying out to the south and east. Now, it may be around for a few days, not too far away, churning up the waters and creating a little surf, but and it may also, in an indirect way, because we'll have a stalled front on top of us for a couple of days, it might keep us in clouds and showers along the coastal plain. But in terms of getting a full push of a tropical storm coming up the East Coast, at least right now, from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
No, it doesn't. And you're absolutely right. If they being the forecasters, the National Hurricane Center, had any inkling, not an inkling, but if they had any concept that this could, bring significant rainfall, the remnants of Nicholas, all the way up the coast toward us, they would show it and they would indicate it to us, and they would say, "Oh, all right, this may pose some kind of a flood threat or a flash flood." They don't have that, so it's just going to sit there. It's going to kind of like shrivel up and die.
Right. So we've got severe weather issues, slight risks tonight in Michigan and northwest Ohio, northern half of Indiana, east central Illinois, and a small area around Buffalo in western New York. Marginal risk makes it to about Albany and Vermont, and northern PA, and points west and south. You can see the arm extends back all across Kansas, with another area of slight risk in West Kansas and Colorado. Also, marginal risk in southeast Louisiana, so that's related to Nicholas, and probably means there could be a few spin-ups. Now, for tomorrow, SPC is kind of, I don't know, the area of slight risk doesn't, I mean, it looks like maybe they shrunk it a little bit from yesterday, just a little. But they have slight risk from Maine, southern Maine, New Hampshire, most of Vermont, a good portion of Massachusetts, right into northwesternmost Connecticut, and just touching northwest New Jersey, and then running down into south central and southwest PA, northernmost West Virginia. Marginal risk on either side to just south of New York City and straddling the south shore of Long Island into southeastern New England. The tornado risk for tomorrow, 2%. In a very small portion there, Joe, in northwest Jersey, northeastern PA, the Catskills, north and east, and a 5% probability in east central New York, or central east New York. I don't know which way I would say that. Southern Vermont, southern half of New Hampshire, and into southwest Maine. You can see that there's that 5% area of tornado risk. They've been pretty good with these the tornado risk indicators. In the last month, whenever they've shown 2 to 5% risk, or that one day they showed 10%, but whenever they showed the 2 to 5% risk, we've had several EF1, EF2 tornadoes in the mix. So it wouldn't shock me if we wind up seeing that tomorrow up in upstate New York and New England.
Yeah, the folks over at the Storm Prediction Center said it extends, that 5% area extends from the Hudson Valley into lower Vermont, New Hampshire, and into your southwestern Maine. When I saw that initially, I said, "Really?" And I took a close look at the map. But yeah, they're right in that 5% that protrudes into New York State. That still is the Hudson Valley. So that's more like the upper Hudson Valley.
Right.
Whereas where I am, I'm in the lower Hudson Valley, and we're only going to be in the 2% zone. But that 5% is small, albeit could be concentrated. I know our good friend on the chat board, Dennis Cassia, may be looking carefully at that, because that place is the place that we all go to in August. Not all of us, all of us in terms of astronomy. Stellafane up in Springfield, Vermont. That's like right in the middle of that 5%, and they're in like a wooded area. So the last thing we want to see is have a few tornadoes in that vicinity, maybe knocking down trees and causing all kinds of damage. We'll keep an eye on that area, especially later tomorrow and on into tomorrow night, as that cold front slowly but surely depresses or suppresses southward on through upstate New York and New England.
The risk area for Thursday into Friday is confined to Minnesota and northwestern Iowa, so that's a plus. And I will check just in case. Let me check the day 4 to 8 outlook here and see what's going on. But I don't expect too much. Predictability too low, too low, too low, too low, too low. Okay, so there'll be severe weather someplace, but we're not sure yet, so we're not going to tell you anything. That's what that translates to. All right. Looking at the upper air, and I kind of took this Atlantic view on the GFS so we can get some perspective. And of course, every day we see something different in the long range, and in the short range, you've got these westerlies here. We're kind of on the edge. The Atlantic ridge is, just kind of nudging right along the coast. You got that tropical wave that's coming off the African coast and south of the Cabo Verde Islands, underneath a stronger part of the upper high that's out in the eastern Atlantic. And of course, right here in this zone is a little trough right there in the Gulf states, and that represents Nicholas. And in this sort of void area, that's where we are looking at this Atlantic system that may develop. But you'll notice, if we were going to have if this were going to be a threat, you would be looking for this ridge to build up into New England and into southeastern Canada. It is not doing that. If anything, it's actually sliding somewhat to the east. So if you follow the flow on this height line here, I'm sorry, I drew that arrow just a little bit too far into land. I wanted to keep it offshore, but it's going to follow this idea. Now the flow is relatively weak. So it's not going to do it quickly. It may take its time, but nonetheless, with the ridge not building back into northern New England and into southeastern Canada, it does seem that anything that does form out there will just kind of slowly inch its way northward and then eventually head out to the northeast. Now, the European overnight was emphasizing that after it kind of gets up off of southeastern New England, the ridge starts to build back, and it was trying to loop it around, bring it down and around, keeping it always offshore, but just having it nearby. And that would be interesting to from a meteorological perspective. But again, even if that were to happen, it doesn't seem as if we have the upper air set up for anything to impact the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic here. And in fact, even as we go into the weekend, there's actually some troughing, Joe, that's right along the coast. So it's going to be very hard for anything that's off of the Atlantic to get too close to land. I just don't see it.
Agreed. And it may very well be that a goodly amount of that unsettled weather associated with whatever that is, if it turns to be Odette or Peter or whatnot, a goodly amount of that is going to be mostly offshore. We'll probably get brushed by some cloud cover and maybe some scattered showers, but unless there's a change, especially in the positioning of that and strength of that ridge, high pressure ridge, it doesn't look like we're going to have to worry too much about that particular tropical system. That's again just in one way just a stone's throw out over the ocean to our south and east, but again doesn't look like a major threat. Nothing like, let's say, an Henri or an Ida.
Right.
Certainly nothing like that.
No. In the meantime, as we go through the weekend and into next week, if you're looking for genuine humidity relief, and I know some areas did get it today with the dew points coming down into the 50s for a little while today, we got a ridge building here in the east, and that's into early next week. So you're going to have to really wait to get a real break in humidity until late next week, when there's there's an upper low, Joe, that moves across southern Canada there from Minnesota and the northern Great Lakes, and that may finally push a trough into the east and bring some genuine humidity relief. But after that, the ridge actually tries to build back again as we head to the last days of the month. Now, this was different from yesterday's run where it had troughing in the east, so I'm not so sure. There's, the further out in time you go, the more variability you're going to see here. So I'm not 100% sure whether I believe that the ridge is going to come back in a big way toward the end of the month, but that's what this model shows. And then, of course, on the last day, on the 384-hour, take a look at this nice, lovely deep trough dropping into the eastern part of the United States, Joe. It's rain changing to snow before ending.
There is, as of yet, insufficient data for a meaningful answer.
Yes, exactly. There's always insufficient data in the long range, so it's just the way it is. All right, let me bring up the surface map and go from there. So hang on one second as these maps load. La la la, la la la. Oh God, the world we live in. By the way, I've never done this before, but I made a pizza today from scratch.
You never made a pizza in your life, really?
My mother used to always make them. I mean, I do other cooking, and I've talked about that, but I don't recall. I may have tried to do it. I've never actually made a pizza on my own, and I made friends here locally with someone who's very much into cooking, and we were talking about making pizza. And I said, but one of my frustrations that I have when I made pizza with my mother was that how do you get the cheese to melt the way they do when you go to a pizzeria? And then he told me, and I tried it, and it worked. You're not supposed to use, and I didn't realize this, but it's not 100% mozzarella that they use. It's 3/4 mozzarella and 1/4 shredded provolone, because the provolone gives it that really stringy look to it. When you bite into a fresh slice of pizza and the mozzarella kind of pulls away. So I did that. I added provolone, and it was perfect. I used a little too much sauce, though. That was the one thing. I have to back off on the sauce. But I had my rolling pin out, and I was rolling out the pizza dough.
And did you toss the pizza like Lucy did?
No, I wouldn't even.
That episode of...
I had enough trouble taking it off my cutting board that I use on the island that I have, taking it up and keeping it in one piece. No, David, I did not use buffalo mozzarella. That I have not been able to find here. I used, I didn't want to spend money on good mozzarella and then have it come out to be a disaster. So I got some on sale polio at the supermarket, and it did the job. So here's the surface, Joe. Tomorrow, I don't think we're going to see a shower or thunderstorm for most of the area from eastern PA to southern New England until after 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow night. I think the day side tomorrow is just going to be very warm, and it's going to be very humid. And then later tomorrow night, early Thursday morning, you're going to get the front that just kind of hang on there along the coast. And you can see there's your low off the North Carolina coast. It just kind of inches up east of Delaware, south of Nantucket, sits there for half a day, and then eventually just gets kicked away to the northeast, and you're left with high pressure and very warm and humid conditions. For you snow lovers, look up in Idaho and Montana early next for the early part of next week, showing some snow there as a low runs across the northern plains and goes up north of Lake Superior. There comes a cold front that dies out before it gets here, and this would be around, I don't know, Saturday the 20. Thursday the 23rd, Friday the 24th. You get a cold front to come through, maybe a little bit of humidity relief with that, and then I guess we have to just wait for toward the end of the month, at the end of this forecast period, where the model brings down something, makes a significant change to the upper air pattern. Do we believe it? I don't know. It's too far out in the long range to take seriously. So that's that.
NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, by the way, has the Northeast, including our own area up here, 80% probability of above normal temperatures. 80%, and that you don't see numbers like that too often in this part of the country, and especially so in terms of temperatures. So that seems to suggest, Joe, that we may be seeing temperatures for more than this is for the 20th to the 24th. Sometime in that time frame, we may be seeing temperatures well into the 80s with that kind of a probability. So we're talking about from the 20th to the 24th. That would be, today is what, the 14th? Today?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Today is the 14th. So that would mean that starting next Monday, I guess Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday through Thursday of next week, the forecast is for well above normal temperatures for our area.
Well, look,
I hope some of you who have air conditioners that you put in or take out of the window or whatever, maybe you should just keep them in for a little bit longer, perhaps even right on through the end of the month. The way this pattern seems to be shaping up, Joe.
If you'd like, you can come down to the North Georgia mountains where I was. It was in the low 50s this morning, and I had to go out wearing my sweatshirt at 10 o'clock in the morning. I still had my sweatshirt on because I hadn't warmed up enough yet. I have to tell you, Joe, it's been great here. It's been. It got a little on the warm side this afternoon. I think we made it. I think we made it to the upper 70s. But it's been terrific. It really has. You would never know this because the general view of the South is the heat and humidity in the summertime. But there are mountains you can go to, a lot of mountains that you can go to, and the weather is a lot different in those mountains.
Maybe this will be the winter where Mr. Chiaffi gets nailed with 1 to 2 feet of snow. Being about 2,200 feet up.
Let it happen once. The only thing I'm dreading, by the way, is I am dreading this. The only thing I am dreading is, you do occasionally get ice storms here, and that is something I really have no interest in living through. So I'm hoping that that doesn't happen, but I imagine that at some point, while I'm living here, I'm probably going to see one, which means I have to definitely be one of those bread, milk, eggs, and bread make one of those trips to the supermarkets to make sure
and
I'm all stocked up.
and make sure you get somebody from Omni to send you a couple of big bags
Salt.
of salt.
Well, they
Put
don't
them in
have
the back of your
salt here.
garage.
They don't do salt here because
Well,
everything melts so
that's
fast.
the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, well,
Well,
you know what?
they don't do salt. Well, you still may need, there was that ice storm in Atlanta, I think about 7 years ago. And it initially was winter storm watch. Then they put a winter weather advisory up, which more or less said, yeah, we're going to get icy conditions. But when they polled everybody afterward, they said, oh, well, I thought that when it went to a winter weather advisory, after it was a winter storm watch, that meant that we weren't going to get hit all that badly.
Right.
And that's why some people didn't get home for 6 or 8 hours that night in and around the Atlanta area. It was
exactly. Chuck Cardillo, what is my average snowfall? It's about a foot for the whole winter. Now there are mountains here that I'm at 2,000 feet. There are mountains that go up 5,000 and 6,000 feet. So I imagine that the snowfall, the snowfall normals for those higher elevations will be double and will be double mine, if not triple, when you get maybe above 4,000 feet. But where I am, it's about a foot roughly. Lord Kate, what do I miss about
what are the
Long
roads
Island?
like?
What's that?
What are the roads like if you're traveling up, let's say, a mountain that's like above 2,500 feet? Or
okay.
It's got to be like those one lane.
Oh yes, they are. They're one lane wide and there's 2 lanes of traffic, and that's complete with trucks, by the way. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I had a feeling.
I went up. I went up to Bell Mountain, which is not that far from me. It's only 30. That one's 3,300 feet up. And I mean, the grade on the drive on the hills is like this, Joe. Okay, so you're driving up. The lane is maybe wide enough for a car and a half. Okay, so if somebody's coming in, thankfully, most of the time, there really isn't. We're not talking about roads with regular traffic here. Okay, so it's more often than not, you would drive up one of these mountain roads. No one would be coming in the other direction. At least you hope that that's the case, especially if you go during the week. On the weekends, it's a little, people go up there to sightseeing and so on. But during the week, it's pretty quiet. But you're driving up, and I mean, you're on this angle. So if you have to pull over to the side of the road, you have just enough room to pull over before like the cliff is there. Okay, so. There's one, and there's cliffs on both. Somehow, there's cliffs on both sides of you. At one point or another, either you could have them on the left or on your side, on the upbound side or the downside. And they actually had signs as you went up, warning about the fact that the snow can rapidly accumulate in these areas, as a cautionary sign, warning drivers that snow can quickly become a hazard up at these levels. So I'm going to be here. This will be my first full winter here, so I'm going to be. I'm looking forward to it. I'm wondering what it's going to be like, but I have to tell you, I'm enjoying these really cool nights that we've been having. By the way,
my wife on the chat. Yeah.
No, I was just going to ask you, do you have a Briller Jeopardy tonight? Because I don't think I do.
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
But I was just going to point out, my wife on the chat board said, what you've just described is not much different from where we live here in Putnam Valley. And in order for us to get to, let's say, Route 9 or Route 9D, we have 2 choices. We can go the long way, or we can go the shortcut way, which is over the mountain. And there is a mountain, part of the Appalachian Range, Joe, Canopus Hill Road, which links up to Old Albany Post Road, which links up to Snake Hill Road. And what you just described being a roadway that's 1.5 car widths in width, and this has happened where I'm driving at like a 20 or 30 degree angle, and here's another car coming from the other direction, and now you have to figure out how far to the right you have to go to give the guy who's ahead of you just enough room to squeeze, and you're literally inches apart as these slowly but surely passing you by.
No, I know.
I don't. I don't.
That's
I
why.
don't relish. I don't relish going up that hill very often, but it's very. Let's put it this way: don't go up there with your 40-foot trailer, and make sure if you have a 40-foot trailer, don't have a ton of rocks in the back of the
Right.
back of the trailer.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, let's roll with Briller Jeopardy. Scott, the chairman, Scott Briller, is out there doing COVID runs. So stay safe, Mr. Scott, as you do your duty there. We want to make sure you we don't want you to get sick. And Lord Kate wanted to know what I miss about Long Island. I just came back after 2.5 weeks being back on Long Island. Well, I'll tell you what I don't miss. Okay, because obviously we could go on about how beautiful Long Island is and all the wonderful things that it has to offer. But I do not miss the traffic. And unfortunately, that is a large part of your life when you live there. Okay. And
Yes.
I have no desire to make that a part of my life ever again with regards to spending, hours in a vehicle. I mean, those are hours you never get back. I mean, I often say when I watch a bad movie, I'll say, well, those are 2 hours of my life that I'll never get back. Well, that's how I feel about driving in traffic, and I don't have that issue here. I get to a four-way stop sign. There's a car in front of me. That's traffic.
We have a couple of good friends who live on Long Island, and every once in a while we will go to visit them. And when we do, about halfway through the trip on the island of Long, I turn to my lovely wife and I say, because we lived on Long Island. We had a home in Levittown, Long Island. Before that, we lived in Franklin Square. But when we go to visit our friends, about halfway through the trip, when we're on Long Island, I turn to Renata and I say, I needed something to remind me as to why we moved to where we moved up in Putnam County, where it's fairly rural still, and there aren't too many traffic tie-ups that we run into. But as I'm stuck going 2 miles an hour on either the Northern State or the Long Island Expressway, I turn to her and I say, now I can remember. It's all coming back to me why I'm happy that I don't live on Long Island anymore. And it's absolutely the truth. I know exactly what you mean, Joe.
Yeah. It shouldn't
So
take
here we go with Briller Jeopardy.
Yeah, let's roll. Go on.
All right. Okay. So another special category. This one features questions developed by one of our moderators, Johnny Quest. And Johnny Quest, for those of you who are new, he lives in the mountains of Virginia, or as we like to call it here, the Ark.
Yes.
Here are 5 questions. Number 1. What beach is closest to Johnny Quest's hometown?
The closest beach?
To Johnny Quest's
Okay,
hometown.
so I'm assuming that we're not talking about a lake beach, we're all talking about an ocean beach. Right? An ocean beach. Okay. So yes. I'm thinking that either I mean, if he goes in the straight line or if he goes on the hypotenuse, if he goes on the straight line, he could probably go to Ocean City, Maryland. If he goes on the hypotenuse, he would go to Virginia Beach. So I will say Ocean City, Maryland.
You had it, Joe, but you went for the
so it's Virginia choice. Beach.
It's Virginia
Beach. Okay.
Yes. How many years in a row? Yeah. What?
No, I mean, what? I did say that those were the 2 choices in my head. So. Okay, well that's close.
Yes,
that was close.
All right, we'll give you half credit then.
Yeah, okay.
We'll give you half credit.
All right, next.
How many years in a row has Johnny Quest's hometown gone over 100 inches of rain? And you'll get within 2 for credit. How many years in a row?
Well, I mean, he's been watching this show regularly now for what, the last 3 years, Johnny Quest. So
I guess
I'll say at least for those 3, and then I'll add another. Well, there was that one year. What year was it that they had those drought conditions in the Mid-Atlantic? Was that 3 or 4 years ago? I'll say 5.
5 on the nose.
Oh wow!
Congratulations.
Total wild guess. I should be able to pick lotto numbers that easy. Go on.
Yes. Well, number 3 is, what is the closest major city to Johnny Quest?
The closest major city?
Major.
All right, so what do we define
Yes.
as major city?
I'm not sure, but you do have 2 choices here.
Okay. Wait, all right, hold on. So I'm thinking, I just drove 81. So, well, I mean, if he's not that far from 66, see, I don't know exactly how far north he is in northwestern Virginia. So I'm going to
I'm not. I
say,
actually, I'm not far from 66 myself, but
yeah,
that's
no, I
another.
understand. That's a Medicare question.
Yeah.
So I would say either, oh, I'm just trying to visualize, say Charlottesville and Lynchburg and Roanoke versus Washington, D.C. See, I would consider Washington, D.C. as a major city. So I'll say Washington, D.C.
Well, you had it, Joe, and you lost it
Oh, it was
again.
again? It was one of those four?
I'll give you a quarter credit. It's Charlottesville
It's
or
Charlottesville or
or
Harrisonburg.
Harrisonburg.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was going. When you say major city, I'm thinking populations of 1 million or more. So, okay, but I accept. I understand. Go on next.
Okay, for number 4, what's the most snowfall that Johnny Quest's hometown has had in one winter? And you got to get within 25 for credit. At least we know. Well, at least Joe, we know we know that it's at least 25 inches.
Right, I got that. All right, I'll say because he's up at 3,000 feet. So I'm going to say, I'll say 75.
200.
Really? Wow.
200 inches.
Wow, that's insane.
Is he on right now on the chat board?
He's around. I thought he was. I saw him
200
earlier.
inches.
Oh yeah, he's there.
Johnny, 200 inches?
Wow.
Gee.
Well, it's 3,000 feet up, Joe.
This one is right in your ballpark, Joe. Really, literally, and it's you could probably equate what you're going through with what he goes through. How many times in the last 5 years has Johnny Quest hit 90 degrees?
Oh well, I haven't hit it this year, and I'm thinking he hasn't hit it. I'm sorry.
He's at 3,000 feet.
Yeah, give me
how many times in the last 5 years has he hit 90 degrees?
I'll say just on the off chance that he might have hit it once or twice. I'll say 2.
0.
0? Okay.
0.
That was my other choice, but I figured let me get a shot there.
I would move south. I would go to a place. I would love to live in a place that's like 2,000 or 3,000 feet above sea level. I just can't stand living in a place where you would get something like 100 or 200 inches of snow. That's
all right. Well, you don't have to live. You don't have to live at 3,000 feet. You don't. You can come a little further south and live like I do at 2,000 feet, and then your average snowfall is only about a foot.
And I see here on the chat board, Scott is jumping for joy because Renata has already confirmed she will be doing Briller cooking Jeopardy this Sunday. And number 2, the next Jeopardy round, I guess, is that true? He's going to feature the Three Stooges.
Oh, good Lord.
God.
Nice. All right. Is that the last question or next to last?
That was it. That was the last question.
Okay. Oh. So the Three Stooges
if I get a perfect score tomorrow night, I'll have some champagne.
Yes. Or Chimney Pansy. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. And the phone number there is 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town, and that's omnitruevalue.com. And of course, salt is going to be the big deal. I know it's September, but remember, folks, a lot of shortages around, and that'll probably rear its ugly head in terms of prices if you wait too long. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, 631-957-5106. The website there, liholidaylighting.com. And for you contractors out there who might want to do this as part of your business, they are having a holiday lighting open house free event on Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021, at 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is for contractors. So give them a call to RSVP 631-957-5106 or go to the website liholidaylighting.com. Okay, sayonara, see you tomorrow. Ciao, tata, bonsoir, Avidazain,
Shalom.
shalom,
and goodbye.
And goodbye. Nighty night, Snooky Yookums.